Hi and welcome to WEH Videos. My name is Skip, and today I want to give you some tips on landing your airplane. And we're going to start with a Cessna 172. And there's some things you should know first before you land, and that is you need to contact the ATIS. Here I'm at San Carlos Airport, and it's 125.9 on our comm radio. So we can look up here and see the weather. We have the temperature and the dew point, and the winds are calm, and the altimeter is 3001. So these are things we want to make sure we have set before our landing. So that's the first thing you do when you are landing, is contact ATIS and get the information. But we're on final approach here. Now this is a long final approach I'm using here just so you can see how this works. Normally I don't like long approaches. The airports I fly into, you do a pattern where you would fly downwind, base, and final. So it's a very short final. But for this tutorial we're going to do the long approach. So first thing you need to do when you're landing is get your proper airspeed. People get confused with it. So you're going to control your descent or your vertical speed here with the throttle, and you're going to control the speed with the yoke. Another thing you want to make sure you have is the airplane trimmed properly. So I recommend that you get a trim wheel for your simulator. That really helps a lot. And if you don't want to get a nice little trim wheel, then set one of your rocker buttons or a keystroke for trim so you can get the airplane trimmed. It makes it a lot easier to land the airplane when it's trimmed properly. So we're a little sloppy on this. We're coming around. We're going to bounce around a little bit. We're going to get rid of the ATIS, and we're quite a ways out. So now what we want to do is we want to first of all get lined up with the runway, and here we are up here. And you'll notice a little red and white lights here. So that tells you you're on the right glide path, and kind of the way they say this is red over white is you're all right, and it's white over white, you'll fly all night, and red over red, you're dead. So as long as this little red light is above the white, you're doing fine. So we're coming in, now we're a little fast. A good speed for the Cessna is, oh, there goes my trim wheel, excuse me, about 65 knots. So you'll notice this arc here, this white arc. When you're here, you can start lowering flaps, which we are going to do. This is going to help us get our speed down to 65 knots. Right now I'm just looking at those PAPIS lights and keeping them there. Put some more flaps in. Bring the throttle down to around 1500. Now I'm going to control the speed with the yoke. Right now we're about 500 feet per minute. That's pretty good. I'm going to back off a little bit on the throttle because we're climbing. I'm going to use the trim wheel here so I don't have to push on the yoke so much. Get myself trimmed so it's coming in nicely at 500 feet per minute. I'm getting a little slow. So I can push the nose down to pick up a little more speed. Throttle, looking over here, around 1,500. We're at 65 knots. The other thing you want to do is pick a spot on the runway and have it stay on the same place in the windshield. This will really assure. So I like to take the brown spot here where the wheels have all touched down and put that in the same spot. So watch that relative to the nose of the airplane here, and it's going to stay right in that same place, and we're going to keep it there all the way down. And when you're sure you can reach the runway, which I'm going to say right now, I'm going to cut the power down to nothing, and then keep that spot right in the windshield. Fly it right to the ground, and then we pull back on the yoke and we flare some more, and then pull back to keep that nose wheel up. Keep the nose wheel up, keep it up, and then let it down slowly. And there you have made a landing. Alright, here's another scenario. Notice that we have white over white on our Pappas lights here. That means we're going to fly all night. We're not going to get down to the runway in time. So this is not the place to be pushing the nose down so you can get to the runway. If you'll notice, we're already at 70 knots. And if we push the nose down, we're going to gain more speed. So what we want to do here is cut the throttle. Use the throttle. And we're going to start, see our feet per minute is dropping. We're keeping the nose up here a little bit, and we are going to drop. Do not push the nose down. Now we're already at 60 knots. We can actually push the nose down a little bit now to pick up the speed we need. But look at our vertical speed now, 700 feet per minute, and we're reaching 65 knots. So this is pretty good. If we just keep it this way, push the nose down a little bit more now to keep that 65 knots. We're at 700 feet per minute. Looky there. Now we have the red over white, and now we can do a normal landing. Now we're going to use the throttle to control our descent. 500 feet per minute. We want a little more. We'll give it a little more throttle, and that feet per minute is going to drop off a little too much. We're going to back off on the throttle. But now we're going to control that with the throttle. We are not raising the nose. Now we've got our spot right in the same place above where we want to land. We're going to keep it right there. We're going to use the throttle to control that. We ought to get in the right path here, get lined up with the runway a little better. But we're keeping that right there. And we're going to come down and keeping that spot in the same place right down to the runway. And then we're going to flare and keep that nose up, keep that nose up, keep the nose up, and don't let it come down. All right, here we are, low and slow. This is not the time to be pulling back on the yoke. You give it full power, and that'll start raising. You got your full flaps, so you're going to start rising pretty quickly. So all I did there was add power. And that's going to get us up to where we need to be. And then we can make our normal landing. We want to get the red over white. Now we're going to put that spot on the runway just a couple inches above our nose. We're going to keep it there until we hit the runway. And we can cut the power as soon as we're ready. And it looks like we're going to make the runway, so I'm cutting the power. I'm going to fly to that spot, keeping it in the same place in the windshield. And now I'm going to flare and hold that nose up, keep that nose up, keep it up, and there we have it. All right, let's do a little review here. First of all, we're going to contact ATIS and get the winds, so we'll know what to expect when we get to the runway. And then we're going to set the airplane up for the proper descent. For the Cessna 172, we're going to try to maintain 500 feet per minute on the vertical speed right here, and 65 knots. And we're going to use our flaps to help us maintain that speed. Also, we are going to trim the airplane. So as we're coming in, we will use the trim wheel to take the load off of the yoke so we don't have to hold that in one position. So we want to trim the airplane for a nice smooth descent. Then we're going to control the speed of the airplane with the yoke, and we are going to control the vertical speed with the throttle. Then we're going to pick a spot on the runway, and I like to use the tire marks there and put it in a place just above the nose of the airplane and keep it in that position all the way down to the flare point. And that'll get us into the correct spot on the runway every time. And finally, we're going to keep that nose wheel up so we don't damage it in the landing. So that's it for my little tutorial on how to land an airplane in X-plane. I hope you enjoyed this and you got something out of this. If you liked this, please click the like button. If you would like to leave a comment, that would be great. And thank you again so much for watching, and God bless.